It's winter in Norway and I'm at the beautiful Lofoten Islands, north the Arctic Circle. Today we have a pretty calm day, we have no clouds in the sky, the perfect conditions to photograph northern lights, and you will join me in this video. What is always a great idea is to check out the location when it's still bright, so don't go at a location that you don't know at pitch black night. Because you can check out the way where to go from the car to maybe a nice foreground, some nice rocks. You can check if it's low tide or high tide, how far you can go, and so on and so on. So I'm already here during sunset, or right now it's after sunset. I have my camera here with me. I have the A7R II by Sony. I have the 16 to 35 millimeter lens. I have the 4.0 right now. What will help me when I photograph later is the flip screen, because then I can take a very low perspective and can get a nice big foreground in my image. And of course the 42 megapixels in the A7R II are amazing to capture all the details in the sky and of that beautiful landscape. Not to mention the dynamic range, but you will see it later in the image. It's always amazing to see what nature gives you when you are just a bit patient. Right now the sea goes back, so it's low tide, and I found a beautiful foreground which was not visible 10 minutes ago here for my image. It's a small water pit with 3 rocks in it, and when I'm lucky and water does not come back that fast, I can take that foreground later for my northern lights shot. What I would recommend you, if you never photographed at night, is just to get comfortable with manual focusing. You can try to use the autofocus for moon photography or for very bright objects, but usually at night it's pretty dark, so I would recommend you to use the manual focus. I'm in portrait mode, but maybe I change it later, but just for demonstration now. Now you go in your menu and you set your camera on manual focus. And now when I just pull my focus ring here on my lens, I see a scale appearing on my back screen, but as well, when I look through the electronic viewfinder, I can see it there. Now I see the numbers appearing, and what they mean is on what distance I focus. In this case, it's 0.3 meters, and when I now turn it further away, it goes on to 1 meter and a few meters more, and then comes a sign. It's a line 8 and it's called infinity. And in most of the landscape situations I photograph, I use infinity when I focus manually. And you can use that setting if you want to photograph northern lights. Just turn your focus ring until you reach the line 8 after all the numbers are gone, and then don't turn it further away. If you go all through the edge, it's too far. Then it gets blurry again. Just go to the first line 8. Practice this in advance and then go out when you are used to it and use it at night. Maybe you can see it in the background. Northern lights glowing behind that mountain. The activity is not that strong yet, and the moon did not rise yet, so it's pretty dark, and I want to get the best out of that situation. Whenever you photograph in total darkness, you can use the level in your camera. And this is a very great helper. You can use it on the back screen or as well in the electronic viewfinder. Just press the display button over and over again till you get to the level, and then you just tilt your camera like you need it, and when the little lines are green, then everything is leveled and your horizon is in one nice line, and you don't need to fix that in post, but get it straight away in your camera. Now focus, just like I told you, and hit the shutter. I'm on 25 seconds of exposure right now. I switched to the G Master 2.8 lens, so I'm on 2.8, 16 millimeters and ISO 6400. But that is not an issue for the A7 R2. The shot looks nice, and as you can see, the Milky Way is in the background. It's not the beautiful part of the Milky Way, but it's the Milky Way and Northern Lights and an epic landscape all together. I take some more shots. We see us later on the computer. Back home on my computer, and as you can see, the images I've just taken are already here in Adobe Bridge. And this is the program that I use to sort my images and to rate my images and to choose what image I want to edit and what image maybe I delete. In this case, this image has 5 stars already, and you can just do that by press Command and the number from 0 to 5 on your keyboard when you're using a Mac computer. When you now only want to see the images that have 5 stars, just go on the left side here, press on the 5 stars, and then you see all the images you pre-selected. And this image now I want to open and I want to edit. You can just double click on the image or you drag it onto Photoshop. Because I shot all the images in RAW, I first develop them in Camera Raw and then later do the final adjustments with Photoshop itself. I will now guide you through some quick steps that I do on almost every image, and of course what steps I do specifically for this Northern Lights shot. The activity on that day was not that strong, unfortunately. I can show you one image from almost the same position but with much stronger activity, and this image is not that much of Photoshop or that much of edited like many people usually think. My photography ethic is that I want to capture everything in one photo. I don't want to add things that were not there. I usually don't blend images, don't do focus stacking and stuff. I want to capture everything in one image. And that's why I overexposed that image while photographed. You see the settings up here, f2.8, 20 seconds, ISO 6400. And let's zoom in the image and you can see ISO 6400 on 42 megapixels with the A7R2 by Sony. There is almost no noise. Only maybe in the dark areas, but that is nothing, I can tell you, compared to other cameras. And that's what I like about that camera and why I use it. Also, the dynamic range is amazing and was one of the reasons why I switched many years ago to Sony cameras and to Sony sensors. I can drag the exposure all the way down here or all the way up to get even more light in the foreground. One thing I do first is go in the lens corrections, and Adobe has a great database of lenses and cameras out there, so when I just check the box with Enable Profile Corrections, I get my image already optimized on that specific lens I used. And what I will do now, I will bring the exposure down for the whole shot, and that is also a great trick if you do night photography, because then even though with the sensor that does not have that much noise, you get less noise and less noise because you make the image darker and not brighter. So in this case, I'll go maybe on -1.2. I bring the contrast up, the highlights down to get more details in the sky, the shadows up, and you see how much information is in the image. I bring the whites up, and that is a great trick for Northern Lights shots because usually whites is in the area around the Northern Lights, and you can make them pop more in the image. And I also bring black a bit up in this image, and then vibrance also up to get a bit more color. Then I take a look for the white balance. I don't like the pinkish color here. I think I set the white balance on auto or maybe on daylight, but I will adjust it a bit more into green that I get more of the Northern Lights feeling. Here in this case, you can also see that there is some orange in the image here in this area, and this is because of a small village that is behind that mountain here, and some houses from that area shine on that here as well. So quite strange of a situation, but you can just fix that by go here into HSL adjustments, saturation, and then just bring yellow and orange a bit down, and then you don't have that much of a color cast in your image left. If you now want to save the image, you can already do it by just press save, but I will open it now in Photoshop and will work a bit more, do a bit more fine tuning. Camera Raw is only one small part of the whole Photoshop program, and now we are really in the whole program. But it's not only made for photography, you have tons of options, millions of options I would say, to edit things, to do layouts, to do illustrations and so on and so on. What I like for my images is to work with luminosity masks. I don't go too much into detail now with luminosity masks, but it gives you the ability to work in different brightness levels in your image. So in this case, for example, I'm only editing bright areas of my image and now can bring the exposure a bit down in the bright areas like in the sky, and can fine-tune my image and can get out more of the nice pixels of the A7R II. When you are done, you have plenty of options to save your image, but as well you can share it, for example, into Lightroom Photos. And when you add it to Lightroom CC, you don't only have it in Lightroom CC on your computer. When it's synchronized, you also have it on your smartphone with the Lightroom CC app. And all of those programs are included in the photography plan by Adobe.